New questions today about Team Biden, what they knew, when they knew it, and whether or not there was some kind of elder abuse involved. This is a pretty big deal, I should say. Trump is accusing Biden allies of not telling the truth when it came to the mental decline, shall we say, of one Joe Biden. And he's actually bringing up the issue of whether or not all those orders that went in, whether they could really be null and void, because who the heck was the auto pen? Watch how this is going to progress. Ladies and gentlemen, he is planting the seed. Okay, he's planting the seed. If Biden wasn't signing all those orders, who was? And therefore, are those orders actually even real in any way, shape, or form? Watch.
Look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but I believe we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that could want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa. They came in from Asia. They came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo in Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country. Who would sign this? Nobody would sign it. No sane person would sign it. You know who signed it? Radical left lunatics that were running our country, and the auto pen signed it. And they didn't want him, and they were disappointed in getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait a minute, this is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the auto pen. And they used the auto pen and everything. He didn't approve this.
Okay, so think about this, like the significance of it from a legal perspective. If this all comes out that Biden had no clue what was going on, everything was on auto pen, we got to figure out who was actually doing all this, then the person or persons that were not elected were actually the ones in charge, and therefore could you have a reversal of so many of these things? It's coming up. And not only is that coming up, you know what else is coming up? Whether or not Dr. Jill should be investigated for elder abuse. Big story right now because my friend Leo Terrell, whom I used to work with at Fox, he's now over at DOJ, he actually put this out yesterday on Twitter, accusing Dr. Jill Biden of elder abuse. As we learn about more and more details about Biden's decline, I mean, now, of course, being diagnosed with prostate cancer in a very advanced form, if this health decline was going on and she knew about it, why did she keep having him go through the motions, right? This is what Leo's asking. Quote, she knew about President Biden's health problems, but she still wanted him to run for president. Evil, he said. And he said that she should be investigated for elder abuse. He is now, of course, as I said, part of the DOJ. He is a senior counsel to the Assistant Attorney General, former Fox News contributor. He's saying this is a bad thing, right? I mean, because elder abuse, he writes, is a form of domestic violence. And Dr. Jill Biden has a lot of explaining to do in terms of her part in defrauding the American people and taxpayers, he wrote. Or rather, somebody wrote in response, somebody else writing, I would never wish Joe Biden physical harm despite my personal political views. Too bad his own family compromised his well-being. You know, of course, that Jill Biden has been the recipient of so much criticism on many shows, including this one right here. I think we equated her with kind of a Lady Macbeth, right? Because at some point you're like, honey, like your husband really should not be running and he can't be running. And it's actually really cruel and unusual punishment to be putting him out there, trying to have him run. But here's what's interesting. Already you see the media trying to coalesce around this idea that, oh, Joe Biden was great. Like he didn't do anything wrong. So therefore, who cares about the auto pen? We got to keep all the auto pen up and running, right? Whoopi Goldberg effectively saying as much on yesterday's edition of The View.
Trust issue.
There has always been a mass trust issue because politicians, media, nobody does what they're supposed to do. Now, I say, for me, listen, he's 83, so he's a little stumbly, he's a little rumbly. I can't point to anything that he's done as that he did.
No,
as
that he was running for his next 4 years.
But I'm saying, I want, not you, but I want somebody to tell me, well, when did you know it was bad? If you knew, why did you wait?
Yeah.
So
okay, she's like all over the place. Whoopi Goldberg, there's a lot going on in that little head of hers. And she starts off by saying, he didn't do anything wrong. I mean, it was a great 4 years, right? Yeah, right, wrong. And then she segues, maybe realizing that that wasn't quite the train of thought that she should quite echo in this moment in time. She then segues into, well, then who knew? Well, who knew? Who knew? I think a lot of people knew. Big Dog, thank you so much for the generosity. He says, keep it going, sister. Love your channel. Thank you so much. We love our channel too. We love our independence here at the Trish Regan Show. Anyway, that's Whoopi. Meanwhile, the media overall is going through this kind of come to Jesus moment. They're panicking because they look kind of stupid, right? One guy who looks super stupid is the guy who wrote the book. That would be one, Jake Tapper. Because I've played you guys a soundbite, we don't need to do it again, but he attacked Lara Trump because Lara Trump went on his show and said something about, that Joe Biden was clearly struggling, and he went nuts on her. He's like, oh, are you a doctor? We were all accused of, cheap fakes, nothing but a bunch of cheap fakes. When we would play you some of those Biden gaffes that showed the handwriting was on the wall. But Jake Tapper now, he's going to profit off of it. Jake Tapper uncovers startling evidence that Biden's decline was covered up by Jake Tapper, writes the Babylon Bee for headline of the week, of course. Unbelievable. But then it gets even better, right? Because Jake Tapper decides to go on Morning Joe. And you remember Morning Joe where they were like, best Biden ever. The cheerleading squad out in full force. Well, now he's kind of having to explain himself a little bit. Let's listen in.
If you're around a guy for hours and hours and hours, I guess the question is, what's the takeaway here? What did you learn? Because did you pick it up in real time?
So, I saw what everybody else saw, right? I saw what everybody else saw, the stumbles in front of the camera.
I just saw what you saw, right? But I'm a moron, and I love Biden and the Democrats. Therefore, I can't actually call anything out for what it is.
My theology professor at the Catholic school I went to was a guy named Riley, last name, and he had been drafted by the Green Bay Packers.
Slow talker. And then there's this.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years.
Do you guys catch that? He said, imagine what we can do next. Pause. You see, because he's reading a teleprompter, and they have pause in the teleprompter because they're going to hold up a sign to the crowd to shout out 4 more years. So he's supposed to pause, but instead of actually pausing, he reads pause in the teleprompter itself, and then he's rescued by the crowd. Again, watch.
4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years.
I mean, there was like moment after moment after moment after moment. One of my favorites, and you've seen this before, was when Georgia Maloney, look at her, she's right above me. Can you see her, Georgia, in the peach-colored suit? And she sees Biden kind of get distracted because he's somehow entranced by the parachuters over there. And so she goes over, and she's just a lovely woman, and she rescues him. She's like playing the mom role or the, daughter-in-law or daughter role, telling, herding cattle there, trying to get him back there for the G7 moment so they can take their photo up. And look at how slowly he's putting on his sunglasses. I remember playing this for you at the time. And then it was like, oh, you can't talk about that. You can't talk about that because that's just a cheap fake. You had KJP like the next day coming out and slamming so many members of the conservative media saying that we were the problem. We were showing cheap fakes, all while the Jake Tappers of the world say, I just didn't see it. I saw what you guys saw, but I really didn't see it. I didn't see it because you know what? You didn't want to see it because, well, you were clearly doing somebody's bidding and carrying somebody's water there, Jakey boy.
But I saw him in person for the State of the Union luncheon that they do with anchors in early 2023, and then I didn't see him in person. Other than that, I will say 2 things. One of them is there were more moments of non-functioning Biden behind the scenes than we were privy to, that we saw than what we saw. If there are two Joe Bidens, there's the one that you saw that you just described,
right,
and then there's the one who's non-functioning, like what we saw at the debate night. Can't follow his train of thought, can't come up with names, can't remember dates, what you listened to in the Her report, or he's like unsure of when his son deployed, unsure of when his son died. Tragic stuff, but he really honestly doesn't know those dates. That non-functioning Biden reared his head more and more and more. Now, one thing, in your specific case, Joe, our reporting indicates that Joe Biden, who, as you know, is a frequent viewer of the show, saw when David Ignatius wrote that column in, I think, August 2023, saying that Joe Biden should not run for re-election because of what he had been hearing.
Right.
And he came on this show, and you guys had a robust conversation about this. You largely agreed that you'd been hearing things about this, but that there was really no alternative, that Kamala Harris was not up to the job. That's what Democrats were telling you behind the scenes. Joe Biden saw that. Joe Biden said to staffers that he wanted to convince you that you were wrong. And he focused on you like you were a constituency, like you were farmers in Iowa, like you were the Kiwanis Club in New Hampshire. And he made sure that you thought differently. He made sure that you thought differently. I think he did this with a couple people. I think he did it with Meacham. He might have done it with Evan Osnos. He knew that there were people that had to be convinced that he was fine. And he tried to prove that to you.
This is priceless. Oh my gosh. So there's Jake Tapper telling Joe Scarborough, you got duped, buddy. You got totally duped. And maybe I did too, because we're a bunch of stupid idiots who can't actually see reality. I mean, we had to hear Morning Joe guy go on and on. Remember, best Biden ever?
He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a
the very best. I mean, you know, clearly the very best. You can just see that he is the very, very, very best, right? I mean, you really, truly can't make this stuff up. These guys are so bad. Just so bad to have sat there and lied to us. And now they're all trying to backtrack from it. Jake's sitting there saying, oh, well, you just got duped. That's all. You just got duped, buddy boy. So I want you to see how Scarborough is trying to justify this. In his head and, of course, to his viewers, rather than just admit he's a stupid idiot who was carrying somebody's water.
I saw Biden in Ireland. I went to 2 events there one day. They had a winding. I was exhausted. I think Biden did 6 events that day. I called home bitching, saying, "God, I'm like throwing up on the side of the road." It's like this is, you know. But winding all around. Biden does 6 events, and so I go away from that. I see him the next day, interview him. He's doing well. He has a hero's reception in Ireland. I've told you about going in and talking to him for 2.5, 3 hours inside the White House. Far beyond cogent. I mean, really has a grasp of international politics in a way that only somebody who's been doing it since he was 29 years old.
Sure.
We get phone calls at home where the guy is like pounding me because of op-eds that I wrote, et cetera, et cetera. So,
you know, though.
So I said that this was Biden at his best.
Sure.
That's what I saw.
I don't doubt.
What other people saw. I was obviously wrong. So I'm not sure what my takeaway is here.
I'll tell you what your takeaway should be. You chose to ignore reality. That you were part of the cover-up. That it was so important to you that Donald Trump lose that you were willing to say whatever, do whatever, think whatever. I think you knew you were lying. But we'll go with the idea that you're stupid and you got duped, Joey boy. Let's go with that for a moment. How could you get duped? Only because you wanted to get duped. You wanted to see something that nobody else saw, right? It was like the emperor has no clothes. What a bunch of idiots. And that is why you are here. And that is why you are watching independent media, where we don't just tell you what the administration wants you to hear. Like, that's not the way we roll, right?